Hello. On January the 8th, David Davis is giving a speech in the chambers on the role of expert witnesses in the trial of Lucy Letby. So if you can do your bit and contact your local MP and ask them to attend, your local MP will not want to be associated with this at all. They will want to avoid it with a 10-foot barge pole. I mean, let's look at this is Andrew Bridgen MP giving a speech on certain
scandal.
Professor
Harris has also
experimental vaccinations, and let's just take a look at how many people are in the chamber when he's giving his speech. Obviously everyone piles out because they will not want to be associated with it at all. But just to do your bit, if you can go to members.parliament.uk, if you just Google how to find your local MP, it will give all of their information there. So let's say you lived in Hackney North and Stoke Newington, and you were lucky enough to have the lovely Ms. Diane Abbott, and it will give her email address there. Although I have to say, I think they are most MPs are away until the 5th of January, but you can still contact them via email. I recommend giving telling them that you're a constituent. You probably didn't vote for your local MP, but just mention that, and just mention that it's a non or bipartisan issue. It's nothing. It should be nothing to do with politics. If they can just attend, give your real name and address. I recommend, just so they know that you're a real person in their constituency. But yeah, David Davis is going to be giving some sort of speech on the role of expert witnesses. So I assume what he's going to be talking about is going to be the conflict of interest that has arisen, where people working for if they're paid by the prosecution, they will have seemingly an incentive to try as hard as they can for the prosecution. Let's not forget that Dr. Dewey Evans, who was paid by the prosecution, is supposed to be an expert witness. He's supposed to be independent, but obviously if he's paid by the prosecution, they will look that way. And like he had bragged before, he had won 9 out of 10 cases or something to that effect, where actually if you're paid as an expert witness, the outcome of the trial, whether the prosecution wins or loses, should be completely irrelevant to anything. If you're paid as an expert witness, your testimony should be impartial. So that is what David Davis, I presume, is going to be speaking about. That it shouldn't be the prosecution or the defence that pays supposedly independent witnesses. And you might think, let me give you an example. You might think, what does it matter who pays them? Surely people aren't devious enough to just do what people pay them to do. And that I actually do believe that. Dewey Evans, this is something about human nature, and I'm going to give a fantastic example where if you have the foundations wrong, later on weaknesses appear. So here's the example I'm going to give of conflict of interest. You've got two mobile phones. You've got an Android phone and an Apple phone. Okay. In Apple phones, they're often a lot more expensive, and they are built with the consumer in mind, and so it's all about consumer security. With Android phones, they're a lot cheaper because the product is the consumer, and so they are built around harvesting data from Google's point of view, and then security is an afterthought, and they try and they'll put in encryption and everything else. And the latest Android phones will boast that they're encrypted, fully encrypted and protected. But let me ask you a question. When the police confiscate somebody's phone, they will not require the password for the Android phone. However, they will require the password for an Apple phone. If they don't get that password from the owner on an Apple phone, they cannot break into and download the data from an Apple phone. However, they can from an Android phone. Now, it's not as if you're in a, the people at Android don't sit in these smoky rooms, having these dark meetings going, I think we should I think we should allow the police to do this or that. That's not how it works. This is what I'm talking about the foundations, that you need to get the foundations right. Apple don't mean to work this way. The same with a certain vaccination. They don't mean to produce a product that potentially done more harm than good. It was just the way the marketing that was structured. Employees at, I'm just going to use this as an example. Employees at Pfizer who worked on the vaccine probably, I'm sure, took the vaccine themselves, gave it to their own children, believing themselves that it worked. I don't want to throw the baby in with the bathwater. I don't want to mix my politics on the vaccine or anything with the Lucy Letby situation. Let's try and separate that. So if what I'm talking about is if the what David Davis will be talking about is if the expert witness is paid by one side or the other, consciously or not, and I'm saying that with good intent. I fully believe that Dewey Evans has completely convinced himself that Letby killed these babies, and that's purely due to who was paying him. You might not believe that, but I believe he believes that. Do you know what I mean? And it's not his fault. It's just because he was tasked with finding something, and if he's looking for something, he will find if he's looking for something through. I won't say rose-tinted glasses because of the opposite. He will find something with those opposite of rose-tinted glasses on. The same as if he was paid by the defence to show, I'm sure if Dewey Evans was paid by the defence, he would believe the complete opposite. It's just the way. It's just if the foundations are wrong. It's a bit like how we're talking about the parents of the so-called victims. At the moment, they're able to claim compensate. They're probably able to claim. I mean, let's assume the babies died of natural causes and not failings on the generic failings of the hospital. Let's just presume the babies' deaths were complete natural causes. They were going to die anyway, even if they did get the best possible care. It's if you're saying to an anonymous parent, you can vote here, and bearing in mind your vote is going to be anonymous, but if this person's found guilty, you're going to get paid several million, but if this person's found not guilty, you won't get paid out anything. What way are they going to vote? There's that naturally or consciously or subconsciously, they are going to be pushed towards one direction or another, and this is what David Davis's talk probably is going to be about. So yeah, I urge you to get your local MP to attend. They won't want to attend because they won't want to touch it with a 10-foot barge pole, but if you can try and persuade them. And finally, the old crime scene to courtroom has been dishing out a lot of stuff, and he keeps saying he's impartial. I do credit him for credit where credit's due for giving everything, reading all the transcripts and everything, but he does tend to keep inserting his own throwbacks and opinions, and even the way he reads the transcripts with Lucy going no instead of just reading it or getting a woman to read it out. But I said before, we were talking about you strike one thing off the list and something else pops up of this quote unquote evidence. The flavour of the month at the moment, for some reason, seems to be the handover sheets. But let me ask a question. I like to, like Jesus, I like to talk with questions. Does he work that way? Yeah, or no, Jesus speaks in parables, I speak in questions. My question is, how much... Okay, we're talking about handover sheets and how evil she was to take home all of these handover sheets that should have been shredded. They should have been shredded, and she had a shredded. She should have shredded them. But let me ask. There was 256 odd handover sheets that the police found. Well, two things. Firstly, it was 250 odd. Yet she was only indicted for killing 15 babies. So where people say these handover sheets were some sort of memento, some sort of deathly memento, well, how does that work when she kept the handover sheets for all the babies that she fully cared for? Also, this is never talked about. Where are all the parents of the babies that she saved the lives of? Why aren't they speaking out? I mean, she saved the lives of, it must have been thousands of babies, but no one's brave enough to speak out, or perhaps no one's listening. Or, like in a lot of cases, even during the prosecution, I remember the prosecution was asking one of the parents of the babies, and she actually said, I don't really remember her. And what a fantastic thing to say, because yeah, she was just as normal as any other nurse. Why would you remember her? I mean, if she didn't do anything wrong, why would you remember her? So the handover sheets. The question is, how much sensitive information is actually on these babies' handover sheets? I know that, okay, technically they're medical records, all medical records should be disposed of, but let me ask, how much data protection and privacy is actually needed for somebody who's not even a full birth term, like however many weeks old? I mean, what are they going to have on there? The baby's credit card number, their Experian. What's someone going to do with that data of the baby's name, date of birth, and O2 stats? I mean, the prosecution kept saying how awful it was for her to take these home and how wrong it was, and everyone says, oh, it doesn't prove anything. I mean, how much privacy does a preterm baby actually need? Bearing in mind, most parents will stick a camera on their child, a baby monitor with a camera on their child until they're about 5 years old. Like, how much privacy does a newborn preterm baby actually need? Like, why does it... Okay, she should have shredded them, but it's got nothing to do with murder. I mean, if that's the worst she's done, failing to recycle, I mean, you could come into my office and find I bet you could find more than 250 odd data protection issues grabbing stuff from my office that I've accidentally taken home or whatever. It just doesn't... It really doesn't matter. Like I say, people are creatures of habit. She took it home one night. She took it home every night. Shoved it with the rest. Like, who cares? And I don't really want to go into this too much, but sometimes she might have been caught out with, the prosecution was saying to her about the handover sheets, right? Oh, so she actually used them in the morning for something. She didn't accidentally take them home. She used the information on them to fill out some sort of forms in the morning or something. Sometimes, not all the time. So in some cases she actually took it home on purpose. All right. Just generally, people are taking a lie that I don't mean to be sexist, but a lot of these people on the internet seem to have never had a conversation with a woman before. They will lie whether they need to or not. Like, stuff will come out of their mouth, and I'm sure it's not conscious, but I'm sure they're not consciously lying, but for some reason they will always try and portray themselves in the best light possible, being a woman. And there are certain countries, I think even today, where in court they won't even certain Muslim countries, but they won't even take testimony in court of a woman. And the same in England up until a certain time. They wouldn't take testimony of a woman for that reason. I don't want to be sexist, but just generally, and there are scientific studies on this, about women will just generally tell X amount of lies per day compared to men. but it doesn't mean I'm not. Firstly, I'm not saying that Lucy was lying about anything because I haven't actually seen any lies. But even if she did, that's not what she's in prison for. Telling lies. She's in she's in prison for murder. And I've said this before. She's not in prison for stealing or whatever, and all the other bad things that she may have done. Which she put. I haven't actually seen any evidence that she has done anything bad. So yeah, there's all of these things about her being a liar. It doesn't. Even if she is, it just doesn't matter. It's not. The witch hunt is unnecessary.